over the fire, and it's burning, I can feel it inside. Done with the same cliche, done with the day after day. There's got to be a way. Now is the time to break the tie. I'll live, I'll die, for what is wrong and what is right. I'll take the pain for all the ones without a name. To be invincible, we'll be invincible. To be invincible, we'll be
Hello and welcome to the show. Welcome to the Sunday live stream. I am here, the Fantasy Football Joker, to answer all of your Sunday questions. Before we begin, please make sure that you go check out fantasyfootballadvice.network. It's an awesome site. I'm signed up there. There's all kinds of great content creators over there. It's also where I put all of my articles. Like, I put them exclusively over there. Basically, that's like my working relationship with the site, is that all of my articles go there and then my videos are all on YouTube. But they have all kinds of great content from other content creators. There's player rankings, trade calculator, league classifieds. But the biggest thing is the community. The community over there is just awesome. They're always dropping questions. There's already a bunch of questions already just in the chat. I was actually trying to figure out how to drop my own thing. I was just like kind of struggling with it. But anyways, basically, we'll start with just like checking in on like some news and notes right off the bat. I know that Christian Watson is out. Deontay Johnson is out. Jacoby Myers, I'm pretty sure, is out. And then a lot of the guys that you might be looking to play that you would have picked up off waivers, like a Puka Nacua, for example, is banged up and has a bad matchup. So all kinds of struggles already with the running backs. Austin Eckler's out, and Josh Kelly was a popular waiver ad and seems to be like a popular start today. Same thing with Zach Moss coming back. I actually just saw word on Twitter basically that Deontay Foreman is going to be a healthy scratch. So Roshan Johnson truthers are already taking their victory laps early. Now, granted, it was a three-way split, and so it's definitely better that one of them is inactive and that it's Foreman. But to me, that tells me that it's going to be between Khalil Herbert and Roshan Johnson. They're going to probably split it fairly evenly. I'm pretty sure Khalil Herbert is still the starter, so it's good. It's trending up for Roshan. I don't think that it means you can take a victory lap like he's now like the lead back or anything. Starting with the Topes early today. For my wrestling fans, The Rock just came back on Friday. That's been like the big news in wrestling. And I mean, like, there's some like 100 million views for The Rock's return in 24 hours. So The Rock was like, writer's strike? What writer's strike? WWE's never on strike. They don't give a shit. Just checking here to see if there's any like major news or notes that I'm missing. Travis Kelce and Mark Andrews, the return of our beloved tight ends. So that was nice to see. I'm just checking in on Twitter here, or on Twitter, sorry. On Sleeper. I trust Sleeper updates the most. They're the most consistent, I find, and the fastest. Let's see here. So a couple news and notes here. The Falcons are splitting carries, basically exactly what we saw last week. So you can start Tyler Algier and Bijan Robinson. Even though I like the Packers defense, those are both excellent running backs. Roshan Johnson, like I mentioned, expected to have a bigger workload with Deontay Foreman scratch, but that also means that Khalil Herbert is going to have a bigger workload because they split it 3 ways last week. So I would expect just like a bounce back for that whole Bears offense. I actually think the fact that they're deactivating one of the running backs is also a good sign that they might be looking to push the ball downfield a little bit more, which is a good sign for DJ Moore. I know I have a lot of shares of Justin Fields and DJ Moore. I think it's going to be a good game for them, even though it's a tough matchup usually with that Bucs defense. Without Tom Brady to back them up on offense, I feel like they can be had. So, Jahmyr Gibbs looking for a bigger role today. Mark Andrews expected to play. Oh, yeah, Brandon Cooks is out. So, Dak Prescott is even less of a fantasy option to me. If there's any, I would literally start almost any viable fantasy quarterback with a pulse over Dak Prescott. Like, give me Brock Purdy over Dak. Give me Jordan Love even over Dak. Give me, maybe not Desmond Ridder. That's getting really, but honestly, like between the defense of Dallas and the defense of the Jets, I have no idea if they're going to even need Dak. Oh, God. Some gross questions on here, too. Okay, so it seems to be enough for the news. We'll get into some of the questions. We've got some questions coming in from a little bit all over the place. Does the weather make a difference for the Patriots game? Coming in from Tyler Bradley in the comments. That's a good question. I didn't realize there was a weather issue there. Let's go take a peek at that. In New England, eh? This is a Boston. Well, that's kind of in my area. I don't know what kind of weather they're having. There's a hurricane. Fuck. Yeah, that sucks. I've got bets in on that game. Well, yeah, I was not aware of the hurricane happening. This is one of those times where real life definitely could affect fantasy football. Oh, man, it sucks because they're saying basically they're expecting landfall like right around the same time of the game. I would expect, though, like if it's that bad and it happens, wouldn't they postpone? And maybe we see a triple threat matchup on Monday night. That would be really gross, but I could see it happening since they already have the doubleheader. I think, if they play the game and it just turns out to be a crazy weather game, I think we're all just kind of screwed. I definitely took over on a lot of like passing stats for that game because I was blissfully unaware of this Hurricane Lee. What sucks too is like you have to be in a very weird position to be able to wait on that. Like, obviously Tyreek Hill is like the most important asset there, but like even Tua, Jalen Waddle, and to a degree on the other side of the ball, Mac Jones, probably a popular streamer. I know Hunter Henry is a popular streamer and one that I advocate for. Kendrick Bourne was a hot waiver ad, and people could be looking to stream that. If for all those cursory players, so for example, like a Hunter Henry, for a Kendrick Bourne, and even for Mac Jones, honestly, like I could see myself pivoting to a safer option if I have one for the 1 o'clock games. But the problem with someone like Tyreek Hill is you can't just like throw anybody in that replaces Tyreek Hill. So you kind of have to wait and see. But the problem with that is obviously if the game gets postponed or if it actually does turn into like a crazy weather game, essentially you're going to have to look to the Monday games to see if you can't get an option that's playable there. And so it's really gross. But the first recommendation I would say is Allen Robinson, who seems to have a pulse with the Steelers because that's a Monday game. And then also Calvin Austin in deeper leagues is like a sneaky little ad that you could make as well. Also a Pittsburgh Steelers wide receiver. And that's, again, with Deontay Johnson out, there's a little bit more work available. So it's probably Allen Robinson is the answer, and it's terrible. And that's like worst case scenario, like the hurricane lands like right before the game, and the game is either canceled or postponed or something, and you're not even sure if Tyreek's going to be available. And or like, you know, you're watching the pregame and it's like torrential downpour, and they're going to try and play in it. Like, okay, obviously Tyreek might not have a great game, and so perhaps you try to pick. But honestly, if he plays, like, I don't care if it's a monsoon out there, like in the end of Jumanji. Like, if Tyreek's playing on a football field, like he's playing on my fantasy team, regardless, I might temper my expectations, but he's playing for me. We'll jump into some of these other questions here. I'm actually going to pull a couple right off the site for Fantasy Football Advice Network because I actually see a couple that came in late. So shout out to anyone from the network if you end up watching this. There's one from Dark Wolf 115. OBJ, JSN, or Drake London as a flex. That's how horrible Drake London's performance was last week, and I get it. I'm in that situation. I think I'm going to rank them JSN 1 because of the Detroit matchup. Drake London 2 because I have this sneaky feeling that Drake London's going to go off today because Arthur Smith hates us, and just to rub it in our faces, it really does feel like Drake London potentially could have a big game. So I think I'm going JSN 1, London 2, and OBJ 3. I'm not that hot on OBJ, to be honest. Even though I like that matchup with the Ravens-Bengals and that could turn into a sneaky shootout, still not a huge fan of OBJ. I feel like the actual right answer is Drake London, but it would really depend. Like, if you need absolute upside, so for example, like I'm in a couple leagues where the other manager had either Jalen Hurts or Justin Jefferson or DeAndre Swift. Like, if I'm staring down the barrel of I'm already down 30, 40 points, then I'm actually going to take Drake London for upside because I feel like he's the only one with the path to, you know, maybe he catches a couple bombs and has one of those like 5 for 125 in one games. Like JSN, to me, as much as I love his talent, is capped by the fact that DK Metcalf and Tyler Lockett exist and that Geno Smith is a competent but not elite quarterback. And then OBJ is just part of the same problem essentially as Drake London, in that even with all of what we heard over this whole offseason, the Ravens offense wasn't that much more pass heavy than we've seen in the past. So maybe they're just still working out some kinks, but I'm going with JSN for safety, like floor, and then London is the upside pick. Goff or Trevor Lawrence? I mean, Trevor Lawrence by a country mile. He's facing the Chiefs. That's like such a, you know, Goff has the matchup with Seattle, which could be it could turn into a sneaky shootout, but no, there's no way I'm backing off of T-Law right now. DK Metcalf or Brandon Ayuk, standard scoring. I'm going Brandon Ayuk. Ayukin. This man, he's built like a whole man. And when you have Debo Samuel on the other side of the ball, it's not like they can just like double team you. That's kind of the problem is it's a little bit of pick your poison offense, but I feel like Ayuk has actually ascended into being like the true alpha wide receiver because Debo, not quite as well rounded of like a true wide receiver the way that Brandon Ayuk is. That's why he's always had that hybrid role with the rushing. And Kittle, I think, might still be a little bit banged up. So I'm definitely going with Brandon Ayuk 100%. Here we go. Who to drop? Full PPR. And it's Kadarius Toney, Christian Kirk, or Cortland Sutton. For me, it's Toney all day. Like, it's not even just the fact that he had the rough week. It's just that there is not going to be a week where you're really able to decide which Chiefs wide receiver is actually going to hit for fantasy. Like, ultimately, Christian Kirk is going to have his weeks in that Jaguars offense, and I get it. He was basically invisible last week. Doug Peterson kind of excused it and said, well, he's not that great in zone coverage. He's better in man coverage, and the Chiefs play man coverage, so we should see more of him this week. If that doesn't happen, then maybe at that point you can move on from him. But between him and Kadarius Toney, I feel like Christian Kirk still has more value. And Cortland Sutton, as gross as it is, he's the easy keep between those three guys. Here we go. A trade question. Beautiful little trade question. On one side, we have Trevor Lawrence, Kenneth Gainwell, Kyle Pitts, and Raheem Mostert. And on the other side, we have Roshan Johnson and Nick Chubb. And there is 0% chance that I'm accepting this if I am the Nick Chubb owner. I like Trevor Lawrence a whole lot, but Nick Chubb is basically untradeable to me this year. Like, there's no offer feasible. Like, it would have to be ludicrous. Like, if you're going to be like, oh, well, here's Patrick Mahomes and Derrick Henry. Okay, you twist my arm about it. But no, like, Nick Chubb to me is borderline untradeable, unmovable. If I drafted him, I'm so happy. And this is also redraft one quarterback. Like, no way. No way. Kyle Pitts is toxic. You do not want this man on your roster, just like Arthur Smith doesn't want this man to succeed for fantasy football. He does not care about your fantasy team. He straight up told us. He runs the highest percentage, in the top 5, highest percentage of 2 tight end sets in the league. Bottom 5 for 3 wide receiver sets with single tight end, generally used for receiving tight ends. He doesn't use Kyle Pitts the way that he was meant to be used, and he never will. So there's no way. This is a bunch of for Nick Chubb and Roshan. Like, if it was Roshan and maybe a couple of my jamokes, okay, fine, and I can get Trevor Lawrence out of it. But Nick Chubb, no way. No way. Ugh. Here's another one. Bijan Robinson and Darren Waller for Aaron Jones and Stephon Diggs. Now that's sexy. That's like a league shaker trade. Oof. That would really depend on my team construct because it's hard for me to give up Stephon Diggs. But if I was deep at wide receiver and I missed on tight end, so I've got like just a guy at tight end. Like, I tried to go real late. I thought I could be cheeky, and I ended up with some combination of like Cole Kmet and Sam Laporta. That's my tight end room. And if I have even kind of semi-decent 3 wide receivers, or even if it's like start 2 and I have 2 other really good wide receivers, yeah, I'm trading Stephon Diggs and Aaron Jones for the Bijan Darren Waller side. Bijan, I think, is just he's gonna take over eventually, but I can see how Aaron Jones already getting nicked up with the hamstring and everything. I think that's what it is anyways. I don't know. It seems like everybody's got a hamstring. I know Darren Waller also has one, but he played through. Yeah, no. I like the Bijan side. Again, this would be very dependent on like I have to have really. So, for example, Brandon Ayuk and Tyler Lockett were both going relatively like later compared to, you didn't have to spend first or second round draft capital on them. If I have like Brandon Ayuk and Tyler Lockett and one of these other potential breakout wide receivers like a Zay Flowers, that's where I'm like, okay, I'm willing to make the move off of Stephon Diggs, who's a true superstar elite wide receiver, to pivot Aaron Jones into Bijan Robinson and to also acquire, with especially how disgustingly terrible tight end performances have been for fantasy. Like Darren Waller still very much could end up in the top 5 for tight end and is going to be more consistent than whatever you're able to patch off of waivers. So in this case, I'm leaning on the Bijan Darren Waller side, but it's not by like a huge margin or anything. All right, we got a really deep one from my boy Raphael. Had asked me a question for the live stream, and it was an easy one for me. Hunter Renfrow with Jacoby Myers probably out, or Zay Jones, the ultimate spot starter. For me, it's Zay Jones. I think that Chiefs Jaguars matchup, I'm trying to get a piece of it. I feel like that could potentially end up being the highest scoring matchup of the week, especially with now I found out at the beginning of this live stream that there's a hurricane a blowing for New England in the Miami game. I think, I'm targeting Jaguars Chiefs on the Jaguars side as much as possible. So I want Zay Jones in my lineup. I want Evan Ingram in my lineup. I even want Christian Kirk in my lineup. Calvin Ridley, obviously. Trevor Lawrence, yes. Travis Etienne, yes. The only one that I'm probably not starting is Tank Bigsby, who I still like his long-term future with the team. But this is very much like in a high-scoring matchup like this, I don't really expect him to have like a full role. He's going to be more complimentary. Maybe he falls in for a touchdown, but that's kind of like that's not something that I'm looking to count on for fantasy. I really feel like it's going to be like Travis Etienne featured. And again, this could end up being a tit for tat high scoring matchup, especially with Travis Kelce coming back, doing his fake injury twerk. So yeah, I'm really in on all of the Jaguars basically. Let's go see if we got any questions floating around here.
Turn off when some.
Not really. It's all right. We'll probably cut this one short this week, which is better for me because then I actually get to go watch other people's live streams. Ooh, yeah. I don't really have questions though. I'm not gonna lie. I don't. A lot of times I'll be in these questions and they're like, "Oh, do you have any fantasy questions?" I'm like, "Start, sit, pizza, wings, and hot dogs." Like, what am I gonna eat today? Ooh. As far as fantasy, I'm pretty well set and decided on who I'm starting. I mean, I can look at. I'm here. May as well. Got some time. Ran through all those questions. See if there's anything I missed, actually. Just check on the network. And again, shout out to fantasyfootballadvice.network. And I've mentioned it before, if you're a small content creator like myself right now, like there's nobody watching this live stream. I'm talking to myself. I totally get that. But you also saw I was able to just go and pull. Oh, crap. I didn't even see Puka's likely out 2 to 4 weeks. That sucks. Oh, man, all those waiver bids just... It's like that scene in The Dark Knight. I don't want your money. Just burning all the money behind him. Man, that's wow. How did I miss that? Well, that's hilarious. Oh, this other thing too. 90% suffer the curse. Derrick Henry, 2020 hit 370 touches, and then in 2021 he missed 7.5 games. It's like, you know what? Derrick Henry is going to be the 10% this year because he went into New Orleans with Steve fucking Gleason on the sidelines and Drew Brees, who put on his uni and ran out and pumped the crowd. That crowd was like, I can't believe they didn't kick the crap out of the Titans and win by 30. The fact that it was 17-16 was a miracle. And Derrick Henry still had 100 all-purpose yards. Just watch this week. Derrick Henry is going to rip the heart out of the Chargers. I think the Chargers still going to win that game. But, man, Derrick Henry, he's going to have a huge day for fantasy. And I'm so sick of listening to Tyjae Spears truthers. This is one thing I want to tell you about Dynasty Bros and stuff. If you play in Dynasty leagues, like I do play in a bunch of Dynasty leagues. And to be honest, I just this idea of always finding the next guy. Like I understand that you think Tyjae Spears is talented and he's getting snap percentage, but last time I checked, snap percentage doesn't equate to fantasy points. So as far as I can tell, Derrick Henry out-touched Tyjae Spears 18-4 last week. And as long as that trend continues, Tyjae Spears has virtually no value. He's basically just a backup to Derrick Henry. And yeah, sure, he might catch a touchdown or run in a touchdown here and there. That's again, it's like if you're planning to just have him as a very deep roster stash and be happy that, you know, he could eventually be the guy in a year or two or three when Derrick Henry decides that he's done. Because from what I've seen already just in this one, I know it's only one game in the preseason, but I haven't seen anything that tells me that Derrick Henry looks like he's going to slow down. And something that almost feels like we haven't quite caught up to is like the miracles of science. And for me personally, like I was out on Breece Hall. I was out on Javonte Williams. I did not think that they would be ready to come back from their injuries. And they were. And I know it's not the same thing. I get it. In age and attrition is not the same as injuries. But what I will say is that if the science of injuries has progressed to the point where guys are coming back so much earlier from injuries, you have to also imagine and probably understand that the same science for age and attrition is available to players who want it. And besides the fact that Derrick Henry is just a genetic freak of nature, he has science available to him better than any other player in NFL history. That's just a fact of life because it's 2023 and science has never been more advanced and better than it is right now. So Derrick Henry potentially could last much longer than people think. There's no reason that he's just going to fall off a cliff because he turned 29 years old. And there's been other players, and granted, they are few and far between, but Frank Gores of the world exist and always will. And I do feel like Derrick Henry already, from a human perspective, fits into that category of weird outlier. But when you add in the fact of like, he didn't have to actually carry the load his first couple seasons. And yeah, science has progressed to like a crazy level. And so has the rules of the game where the hits that he's taking aren't comparable to the hits that Earl Campbell was taking, for example. So his career is likely to be extended for those kinds of reasons. And as fantasy players in general, we're always so willing to bet on outliers, but then when it comes to like someone like King Henry, the idea on betting on the outlier that he's just going to be the one that beats Father Time in the same way that Tom Brady did, because obviously no one beats it forever, but like there's no reason to think that Derrick Henry's just going to fall off a cliff. And this week he's an absolute smash. And if you're a Tajay Spears owner out there that's just gleefully waiting behind the tree with your paws like this, I'm sorry, but you're going to be waiting for a hot minute, because I just don't see Derrick Henry like, and any player can get injured anytime, but like he hasn't shown even that he was slowing down in even just the Saints game. Because like I said, that's one of the tougher defenses in the league. He was on the road, and they had fucking Steve Gleason and Drew Brees on the sideline pumping up the crowd. Like, I don't know what running back is going in and getting 100 yards in that situation. And it's like, I don't know if people just didn't watch that game. He had this awesome angry stiff arm, and then he took a screen that almost went to the house. It was like a 40-yard screen pass. It was a freaking pass that he had. It wasn't even like it was 100 yards rushing. It was 100 all-purpose. Like, he had some like 60 yards rushing, and then because of the long screen, it popped him over 100. So the fact that he's also like, getting that work in the screen game, we saw that last year, and we've seen that now continue already through the first game. Like, there's no reason to back off Derrick Henry. And if there's anyone in your leagues out there, especially in dynasty leagues, shit. If you're a contending team, go throw a second-round pick at them. Even if you think that you are 100% sure going to win the championship this year. Like, I have a league, and people are like, oh, you can't compare one-on-one. I don't give a shit. I have a league where I have a ridiculous amount of wide receivers that are just fucking unfair. Like, to me, it's like there's no way that I'm not finishing first this year in the standings, and then anything can happen in the playoffs. But like, as far as I'm concerned, like, lock it up. All right. If you feel that way about one of your teams, or you're very close to that, a first round rookie pick, especially in like a 12-man league, a 1.12, who gives a shit? Trade that away and get Derrick Henry for this year. And as long as he has a good year, you'll still be able to trade him in the offseason. Maybe not quite as much. Maybe you got to package him to get that 112 back. But there's really no reason that you wouldn't be able to do that. And you'll have gotten a whole year out of a stud player that people are kind of trying to sell on early. And it's too early, I feel like. You could probably get another season or two out of it before really, I feel like the wheels potentially could fall off. And even then, it's like we've seen before with another freak of nature like Adrian Peterson, where let's not get into the whole situation of why Adrian Peterson was removed for a year. We all know and acknowledge that it was because he had that incident with his child, beating his kids, whatever it was, with the switch, which is like a stick or something. I'm from Canada. It's not a thing for me. So the bottom line of like he missed a year of football. If not for that time that he had to take off, like why would Adrian Peterson have stopped being a dominant force for the Minnesota Vikings when he was already a fit in that system and, like was still able to pop off decent seasons for the Redskins? I think even the fucking Lions at one point, like, when he was trying to just keep it going to get to that all-time rushing record, I think is what he was trying to do. But like Adrian Peterson, had he not been kind of forced to leave the Vikings, he would have been excellent in his age 30 season, probably in his age 31-year-old season as well, and probably 32 even. Like, I know it's NFL old, but I'm 33 years old. I don't feel like I'm about to die tomorrow, guys. Like, it's not like I'm like some like 45-year-old man out here with rickets. Like, and I'm not a trained NFL athlete. Like, if I had the body of Derrick Henry, who looks like fucking Zeus personified into a human being, like it might be different, So see if I can find another couple questions, and then I'm going to get the hell out of here so that I can get myself ready for some NFL football. Let's go in. Oh, here's a pools question, which is not something that comes up a lot. I was supposed to do one this year, and I kind of didn't end up doing it, but I'll probably just end up. It was my mom and stepdad, but I think I'll just end up helping them instead. But let's see here. Need to pick a third team to lose for my pool. Already going Las Vegas versus Buffalo and Rams versus San Francisco. That one actually feels a little dangerous. But San Fran's good enough to cover. So Atlanta versus Green Bay, New England versus Miami, and Tennessee versus Los Angeles. I know Chargers are going to charge her, so it kind of feels scary. But there's no feasible way I can see. I mean, DeAndre Hopkins is active, but he's going to be playing injured, so it's debatable how effective he's going to be. But even besides him, like we saw. One of my really deep dynasty stashes that I've had for a long time, just because it's like I can't drop him in the league that I'm in, but I also can't do anything else with him. Nick Westbrook-Akine. We saw him resurge from death, basically, in terms of fantasy football relevancy. Yeah, no. Oh, man. Chargers going to Charger. I get it. Leaning Atlanta versus Green Bay. I think Atlanta could beat Green Bay. I know it's like they're just going to – the problem with Atlanta is they're going to just run the shit out of the ball all year, and that does two things. Obviously, the fact that they're able to do it effectively stresses your defense and tires out your defense, but it also bleeds the clock like crazy because incompletions stop the clock. And so when you're talking about like a rate of play and opportunity, like there's a reason Desmond Ridder only had to throw the ball 18 times. And that's why Arthur Smith's offense pisses everybody off in terms of fantasy, unless you own the running backs. And I don't see any reason for them to change. They have a decent defense. I think Atlanta could beat Green Bay. I would almost pick Green Bay there. I feel like Green Bay is more likely to lose than Atlanta. I'm gonna roll with Tennessee though. I think the Chargers after last week are gonna rebound. I think the offense was a little bit disjointed last week, even though they still were effective in terms of Austin Eckler and Josh Kelly having good games. I think the absence of Austin Eckler forces them to go through the air a little bit more. I'm gonna roll with the Chargers, or rolling with the Chargers to win, so I'm rolling with the Titans to lose in this sense for the pool. All right, see if we got anything else. Nothing coming in. I'm going to wrap this up in a couple minutes here. Yeah, I still can't believe the Puka thing. I completely missed that. So I've just been it's funny because it's like I did my Thursday show and then I worked Friday and then just was kind of out of it all day, and then Friday ended up staying up late and doing another show, which was a lot of fun. It was a killer show. But then because of that, because of the 2 days in a row, I just was kind of zombified yesterday and didn't really do anything. Even I was supposed to go grocery shopping, real life, peek behind the curtain, and I just was nah. I mean, I don't have my daughter this weekend, and I just was I'll just go tomorrow, which I regretted instantly this morning of fuck, why would I make myself go shopping before I have to do a live stream and, get to sit down and watch football? But I was I'll have more energy. And so I went this morning, did all that shit. But yeah, I just was like completely fucking zombified for 2 days there. It felt like, and also I lost my blue check mark for like a couple days on Twitter because I had the gall, the unmitigated gall, to change my profile picture to my actual face. I had my Scott Fishbowl avatar that they had sent me. It had been a few months, but I was like, you know what? Let's put my pretty mug up there so people know who that they are following. So it was just very quiet on the timeline for a couple of days there, and I just kind of focused on uploading a couple YouTube clips and messing around with some stuff in the back end. But yeah, I just wasn't really checking in on anything really. Like I didn't check on football or anything. Even like the shit with The Rock coming on SmackDown just kind of popped up on my timeline. I was like, oh fuck, The Rock showed up at SmackDown? Like, god damn. What kind of spicy week is this? So hoping that a lot of my teams can overcome because I'm definitely already in a couple matchups. That's what I was going to go look at, and I kind of got distracted and forgot. But hey, that's my style. So yeah, here we go. One of my big leagues, which is $1,000 grand prize. I commish this league, and the best part about this league, my favorite part anyways, is if you finish last, you're out. And that includes me. If I finish last, there's contingencies in place where I would essentially like run the league as a shadowy league figure, the man behind the curtain running it as the commissioner, but I would not be allowed to participate. Now, it's not a permanent ban. It's 1 year. You're eliminated from contention for at least 1 year. But yeah, I'm staring. I had a bad week last week because you'll know right away when I tell you why. I have Justin Fields, DJ Moore, and Najee Harris all in my lineup. So clearly they all busted pretty much last week. And I took an L for that. And so I was hoping that I could rebound this week because it's a good team. Like, there's no reason this team should be losing. There we go. We'll even just share screen here. Okay. So as you guys can see, I'm facing Jalen Hurts, who went off with those stupid tush-push touchdowns. And he also had Jordan Addison going, who popped that 40-yard, or it was a 50-yarder. So he popped that long touchdown. So now, I'm already down. I had Eagles defense. Ooh, it looks really smart for a while. I mean, the 4 forced fumbles and 4 fumble recoveries, but unfortunately gave up all them passing yards and points. Really drove that score down to like an average score. As you can see, that Dallas defense looms large across the field. So I'm going to have to really hope that this little trio here of DeAndre Hopkins, Kittle, and Dylan stay quieter than people hope. So I'll be rooting against those guys. However, I have Jamar Chase in places where I need him to perform. So hopefully he does just well enough to help me and not help my opponent here. And then on my side, I've got Fields and DJ Moore stack. So I'm really hoping that those guys bounce back this week. Nick Chubb and Najee Harris, I'll have to wait till Monday, hoping for Najee to bounce back. And then Chris Olave, another Monday game. So a lot of my stuff is going to be on Monday. And the one that I've been debating is Mike Evans and Gabe Davis. It just feels like it's going to be one of those Gabe Davis weeks where he goes for 200 yards on my bench. And I'm annoyed by it because the right decision is to play Mike Evans, and that's what I am doing. And then going with James Cook, who I'm hoping has a good game, 20th ranked run defense of Las Vegas Raiders. I like the matchup. I like the talent. Hoping they lean on him a little bit more, especially with Josh Allen having taken his lumps a little bit last week. So yeah, this is my main league that I'm concerned about right now because again, when you're already down that big score from the Thursday matchup, that can be tough. It can be tough to deal with. Also, Scott Fishbowl, that A.J. Brown non-touchdown because of Rashad Penny really hurt me. So, if you played Rashad Penny in your lineup, he hurt you almost as bad as he hurt us A.J. Brown owners. And it was that, and then right after, too, like they immediately went back to him to give him the touchdown, and it was like a super obvious pass interference. It's such a bullshit. They didn't even call it. So that was annoying. Between AJ Brown getting the TD called back on the hold and fucking Justin Jefferson's fumble, those two things cost me $100 on a bet that I had. So it was a small bet, but I would have won if they would have just got touchdowns. This is my other home league. And this one I am rolling with Jared Goff because it's a super flex. Nick Chubb, again, one of my most drafted running backs this year. DJ Moore, hoping for the bounce back. Now, this one, last week, we covered because of Brandon Ayuk and performances from Brian Robinson, especially who I'm sitting this week, only because, I have, to me, better options for upside. Now, normally Brian Robinson would make my lineup, but in this very specific instance, I couldn't play Gabe Davis. It's almost like because I couldn't play Gabe Davis here, I'm going to take the chance of playing him here because I don't want him to go off on all of my benches for 200 yards. So there's always upside, downside to having so many leagues. This is one of those upsides of like, well, look, if Gabe Davis goes off today, yeah, there's one place where I have him benched, and that might suck. And I probably even need him more there, but at the very least, probably covers me here. And then I've got Herbert, Mandrews returning, feels good. So feels like a good team. But again, Nick Chubb, Najee Harris. That was my double tap for running back this year, and I did that in a lot of places. So I really need Najee Harris, especially to work out, because Nick Chubb is a lock. And then this is the team of legend. The legend of Paul Smackage. But no, this is my dynasty team, 16-team league, and it's just a dirty roster. So Justin Jefferson I had drafted, and same with Lamar because this is a super flex. But then there's a guy who he's no longer in the league now, but for a while he was like my favorite trade partner, and we traded. Actually, that's what I love about Sleeper. You can just go look at the trade and see what it was. So at the time when I made the trade, like it was definitely a fair trade. Okay, wait, where do you see it? I'm so used to doing it on my phone. Okay, that's not what I'm looking for. Okay, fine. You know what? I'll just check it on my phone. Take 2 seconds. DeAndre Hopkins is expected to play. I mean, if you drafted him, you'd have to have a good option to start instead. Oh, here we go. Another question. 16-team, half PPR. Start Roshan or Dalvin Cook? Ooh. Yeah, Roshan Johnson or Dalvin Cook. Why does this feel like a Dalvin Cook week? Ooh, that's gross. It just feels like the Jets are going to lean on the run to try and mask Zach Wilson's deficiencies, but no, I'm going with Roshan there. He's got more upside, at least. So the Mahomes trade, once upon a time. So at the time, this is all the way back now. Feels like so long ago. In 2021, I sent Matt Ryan, Chris Carson, Mark Andrews, and Debo Samuel. And in return, I took Brandon Cooks, Hunter Henry, Ronald Jones, and Patrick Mahomes. So at the time, people were like, yeah, I mean, Matt Ryan was a viable starter. Chris Carson was a viable starter who unfortunately then got injured. Not like I could have foreseen that. It was super flex. And I literally was like, look, Mahomes is the GOAT. Like, I want the GOAT, the young GOAT that's going to be there for a decade on my team. And then, so I did that. Amon-Ra St. Brown, that was another one where I had sent. This was actually a really good trade for me. Laquan Treadwell. So this was in 2022. Laquan Treadwell, but then Josh Jacobs and Amon-Ra St. Brown. And I sent Tony Pollard, Michael Pittman, a first-round pick, and a second-round pick. And it's like, well, Michael Pittman's decent, but I don't think anyone values him above Amon-Ra St. Brown even close. Amon-Ra is considered one of the best dynasty wide receivers now. And as much as I like Tony Pollard, Josh Jacobs is, I think, a better running back. And, this was the year that Pollard was still splitting with Zeke. So for me, and I got the year out of Jacobs where he had a career year, was the number one in fantasy, and I traded him this offseason for Tyreek Hill. So now that's why on my team I've got Jefferson, Tyreek, Amon-Ra, and Stephon Diggs. So Stephon Diggs was another one. That was a little bit of swapping up where I traded Stephon Diggs and I got a fourth round back, and I sent Deonta Foreman, Chase Claypool, a 2024 first rounder, and a 2023 third rounder. So again, the value, the overinflated value, I feel like on first round picks, it's like no matter what state that team is in, they were better with Stephon Diggs than they were with Deonta Foreman, Chase Claypool, and my future first, which is basically going to be last. Because at this rate, I could literally go undefeated in this league just because it's how deep the league is. When it's 16 teams like this, it's like nobody else has a. Like you look at the across the way, and my opponent, which a lot of people in this league, even some of the better teams, are forced to do, are starting Juju, Chanel, and Hardman even cracks his lineup. So it's like, and people were making fun of me for Hunter Henry. But Hunter Henry was the tight end one on the week. I would highly recommend Hunter Henry as again, a late deep stash streaming option for your 8 to 10 man leagues, but in 12 and deeper, he's a viable starter and should be owned and rostered easily. So hey, we ended up almost making it to 12:30 anyways. I'm gonna cut it a little bit early here so that again I can just go get myself ready for the games. Shout out to everyone who did join in on the live stream. I did see people popping in on the eye there, the eye of Sauron, watching me above from the top of the YouTube screen. So if you did end up popping in for the live stream, thank you. And if you end up watching this a little bit later, then hey, make sure that you go ring that bell. And next week when I go live, you'll be able to join me and we can smoke, joke. I'll answer some questions. And hey, I'll catch you on the flip side.
He's running down the middle by the 50. He's at the 30. He's bare-chested and banging his chest. Now he runs the opposite way. He runs at the 50. He runs at the 40. The guy is drunk, but there he goes. The 20. They're chasing him. They're not going to get him. Waving his arms, bare-chested. Somebody stop that man. Here comes